Good evening, everyone. It being on or after 8 o'clock, I'm going to open up the August 15th meeting of the Georgetown Conservation Commission. On the agenda this evening, we have a number of business items, some discussion items, and 8 hearings. And I'd like to start off with one of our discussion items relating to open space. And if I could have the representative from our Open Space Committee come on up and present what he wants to discuss in terms of projects.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see everybody. I think everyone knows me. I'm Peter Burns. Excuse me. I'm the chair of the Open Space Committee here in Georgetown. As you know, that's a subcommittee of the Conservation Commission. And today I'd just like to walk through our proposal for rehabilitation of the community gardens access and also improvements to the access to the Lufkins Brook Conservation Area. So you may remember back at town meeting in May, the town approved $50,000 to go to the Conservation Commission to improve access to these 2 spots that are very prominent areas of open space in Georgetown, the community gardens at the top of Andover Street and Lufkins Brook Conservation Area, which runs between Andover Street and West Street. So we've gone through, and the $50,000, we have a sort of a mock-up of the budget here. $25,000 for the community gardens would include a new parking area and rehabilitation of a trailhead and access point to the Lufkins Brook Conservation Area at the sort of the bottom of the hill behind the gardens. And then $20,000 to rehabilitate an old access point off Andover Street to allow better access and parking for the Lufkins Brook Conservation Area right on Route 133 on Andover Street. We've added a $5,000 contingency to bring it to $50,000. And this project is consistent with our trail linkage analysis that we just did as part of our open space plan, and it's also being done in cooperation with Conservation Commission and with Highway Surveyor Peter Durkee. So if you just want to walk through this little presentation that I've given you here,
Okay.
Page 2. So this kind of looks a little bit more at the, in detail of what we're going to do with the community gardens. So this would be establishing a parking area off of Andover Street, right where the gardens are, to the west of that. So going out of town, past the gardens on the right, we'd make an access point going into the woods right there. We'd leave the tree line, but take out, clear out an area roughly 100 by 75 feet, and we'd be taking the trees out, stumping it, putting the stumps farther down behind the garden spots to kind of level it off, and using some topsoil to level that area off.
Going kind of behind that stone wall and then
Yes.
just essentially an access way into a parking area along the wood line.
It would be beyond that, so it wouldn't be anything that is in the existing footprint of the access points to the gardens right now. It wouldn't be using that existing kind of cut-in right there in the thing.
You mean
It would
right
be
here?
farther down.
This is where you're planning, right?
That's right,
Right,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Right here.
So we'd be doing that. We'd be putting recycled concrete as the surface, so that would be a pervious surface that would allow for drainage and things. And we'd also be trimming the trees on the opposite side of the gardens with some dead trees and some deadfalls there that we could take advantage of having the equipment in there then, taking care of that. And sort of the part B of this task would be at the bottom, at the sort of the northwest corner of the gardens parcel. There's an access point into the Lufkins Brook Conservation Area there, but it's all overgrown. So that would just be some
Very much
basic brush cutting and everything, and I've got some pictures here that you'll see
Yeah,
that they'll come out
there once
nicely.
was actually a parking area in there, but it's all
Oh, was it?
long overgrown.
Yeah, okay, right. So that's task 1, and the cost would be to, and this is sort of rough, I'm working with Peter Durkee to try to, he's gonna be able to help work this out between his own crew, renting an excavator, and also hiring probably a tree removal service to help out. There's a cost breakdown here with, that comes up to about $25,000. And so if you go to the next page, page 3, there's 2 slides, and the first figure just shows the street view from Andover Street. You can see that sort of rough access point right there with the stone wall. And then the second figure shows sort of the meager parking that we have right on Andover Street right there now, just right in the breakdown lane, which is the reason why people have been asking for better parking. On page 4, the top slide was the one that Rachel was referencing earlier. So if this is a GIS thing, and if I was a little bit more sophisticated with overlaying polygons over here, I could plot out this area. But if you look, you can see the garden is that open space, and then it would be sort of 75 long by 100 deep, where we would try to do the tree removal. And the trees are fairly light in there, and so and it's a nice flat, high spot, and I don't think it's wet. So I think we should have a pretty easy go of it down there. And so if you look back toward the rear of it, the rear of where this 100 feet would be, if you see that little dog leg in the path right there, back behind there was where the stumps would go, and we'd level that off and put some topsoil that's reclaimed from the tree and stump removal in there. And so try to reclaim some of those resources. And then you can see in figure 3, it's kind of a dark thing, but that's looking sort of at the brush area where we would be clearing the trees out.
Yeah, a few trees, not that many years ago, were taken down in that area.
Yeah.
So it's not heavily forested, at least in that section.
It's really not, yeah, and the trees are fairly young. If you go to page 5, please, it's that's sort of figure 4 is the proposed trailhead at the back of the property, and so you can just see how it's all overgrown with just shrubs and bushes and things like that. And so just to get some brush cutting in there, we'll maybe put a little sign in there and establish a trailhead. And if you look at the slide below it, you can see how beautifully that opens up into the woods, into the conservation area. Once you get through those brambles and all that, or the willywags, and then it comes out, and we'll be able to reestablish a trail in there. And that, if you walked straight through there, you'd come right out to the West Street fields. So that gives you access to the part of Lufkin's Brook that's really not accessible right now, because everything else is on the other side of that beaver pond and the brook itself. There's no
Yeah, I've
nothing on
actually
that side.
walked from one side to the other. It's a challenge.
Yeah, right.
You can do it in the early spring, but
Right. So I think it'll be good, and it just opens this area up to a lot of opportunities and things. So that's task 1, and task 2 starts on page 6. If you care to take a look, so this is the Lufkin's Brook Conservation Area access improvement. So there's currently an old overgrown access point on the Georgetown, the town side of the east side of what was formerly the Georgetown VFW, and that's overgrown, and you can't really get in and out of there. So we're proposing to put an access point right over the town line, so it's about 500 feet down from where toward Boxford, from where the VFW is, and it's an old, looks like an old road access point. So you wouldn't really need to do a lot of excavation, but with some tree removal,
you're
you could
talking
really
just
drive
before
right
the
in there.
Boxford line there.
That's right.
There's some rocks. There's an old
Exactly.
dirt cart path that goes in there. I've walked in there too. Yeah.
Yeah. So with some real minimal tree removal and some light grading, we can put the reclaimed concrete in there, remove the stone wall, get a sign up. We've already got the sign. We just need to build the framework for that. And we could put we'll have a handicap parking spots on both spots at the Lufkin's Brook and at the community garden. And if we have any money left over, we can continue some of the work that we've done on the West Street access point to Lufkin's Brook. We've already got a new sign up there. We've built a bridge over the brook itself, and if we can take out a few pole-sized evergreens in there, it opens up to a really a sandy. It looked like it used to be like a track in there or something like that, and you could just cut that out so people have a turnaround and an access point, and it's sort of budget dependent. And the cost breakdown would be just the removal of the brush and stumps and the labor costs of putting the parking lot in and the signage, etc. There's, it's $20,000 we're expecting, but I think we should have more than enough money to get all this work done, and possibly the work at West Street as well.
Is the intention to have the majority of the labor done by Peter in-house?
I think that he's going to try to do as much as he can with it. I think what he would probably like to do, and I can't really speak for him, and we didn't really get into this kind of detail, but I think he would probably contract the tree removal out, but I believe it would involve the town renting an excavator or some type of machine to be able to remove the stumps and do a lot of the grubbing work, which Peter calls it, which is getting the stumps out and then replacing everything and getting that all back into shape. And so there's some photographs here on the next page, page 7, just to kind of give you a little better idea of what we're doing. The top figure 6 shows the current access point off of Andover Street. You can see and then figure 7 is sort of a different view looking down the road. It's a kind of a treacherous way in and out of there. You can't turn around. You'd have to pull in and back out. You couldn't have more than one car there without blocking somebody in, and the trail is all overgrown. So that's why we're proposing this other site that looked like it was actually a part of a road that went into there at one time. If you go to the next page, page 8, figure 8 shows the proposed access point, and it's exactly as you had described it, Carl. It's there's a couple of stones there that someone put there probably to just keep people out, and it's since grown in with some trees that wouldn't really be a lot to
I was
remove.
able to walk from there all the way over to West Street.
Sure, yeah, and it's already really an established trail in there, so it would just be a matter of doing a little bit of trimming and things like that once we get in there to kind of match up the West Street and the Andover Street pieces to this. So I think it's really going to be good. Figure 9 shows sort of in scale with a truck there. You can see the sort of the size of it, of the entranceway on Andover Street. And if you go to page 9, you can see my truck in the view, and if you look way down, you can see the town line. So that gives you an idea of what it's about 500 feet east of the Boxford town line, where this spot would be. And
Okay.
figure 11 gives you another closer look at.
Actually, some of this trail network actually goes into Boxford.
Right,
Actually, you
it
can go
does.
right over to the cul-de-sac down over in Boxford.
Yep, the one that comes off of Pine Plain Road. Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's that. And then page 10 just sort of shows sort of what we've done with some of the Community Preservation Act funds that we've had already for access improvements, consistent with our planning that we've done in our open space plan. We've worked with the Boy Scouts to get a sign up, so we've got that there. We've trimmed the trees back a little bit to allow people to get a vehicle in there and park. We put this bridge in. You can see that on figure 13. Quinn Lankshire, who got his Eagle Scout this year, did an awesome job with his troop building that. So that is going to prevent a lot of erosion and things like that over the brook. And I think it's just a nice feature, kind of attractive. So if we can have some extra money left over and we can take out a few of the trees, if you look on figure 12, if you look in there, you can see those small little pine trees. They're all grown up together. And if you could move that out of there, people could have a way to turn around. There's a beautiful flat cleared trail all the way through there.
Yeah, it was
that would
almost
really
like
be
there was
good.
a circle right in there at one point. I think,
Exactly.
And then the road goes straight, and
Yep.
there was a circle next to it.
Right. And I don't even think you'd need a surfacing in there at all or anything like that, because it's all really just, it's like a sand pit.
Sandy, yeah.
Yeah.
It was sandy.
So we'll see how that works out. And then, nice little picture at the end here of standing on the Beaver Dam on Lufkin's Brook in the wintertime. It's just a good spot, and I think that if there's better access and it makes it more attractive, then people are gonna realize what a gem it is right in the middle of town, right as you come into town. And so I think it's really gonna be a nice way to draw people into the open space properties that we've spent so much time.
Yeah, at one point, someone
So-
had made a trail network in there. There was actually even some marked trails in there. If you
Right.
look on some of the trees, there's little like wooden arrows and things like that. They're old.
And there's actually maps, if depending on where you look, you can find certain trail maps that have already been done. But we've had, in the Open Space Committee, we've had folks come in who are digital mapping experts. So they've come in and they've exposed us to these new technologies that can help you do this, through GPS and these other types of things. So we're trying to, that's the next phase of all of this. So, but I think Lufkin's Brook is just such a great low-hanging fruit sort of a project to start off with these things, because it's such an established place already, and just with a little bit of work to improve access and parking, it's just going to make it that much more accessible to people.
I agree.
Peter, quick question.
Sure.
Regarding the gardens themselves, there was some discussion about how to maintain the water lines there and potentially improve them.
Right.
Is that part of your proposal, or is that kind of an add-on?
Peter mentioned that there's something that can be done to improve that somehow, and once
Right
we're in
now-
there with an excavator, that might be the time to do it. But I don't know what the costs or what the implications of something like that are. But I think that
I mean, extend them or
No,
just,
so right now they're not freeze-proof.
I wouldn't
And the
think so.
thought, and they're very shallow. Like, so the area they're proposing to do this work, they're lying on the ground. So that's gonna have to get cut and disturbed, and the question I had previously was if it's probably worth paying some money while there's heavy equipment there to trench it deeper, and then they can put freeze-proof valves on. Because right now, we're paying to have that line blown dry every year by the water department and shut off. So while there's equipment there, I mean, literally, it's just a 1-inch pipe with, gasket.
Well, I think it
Yeah.
would be worth to find out. I mean, if you've got the area already disturbed.
Well, I mean, it would.
Does it go laterally across it? Right,
Yeah.
okay,
There's
so,
2 or 3 lines that go through there. So part of it is where this area is gonna be disturbed. It makes sense to at least do that at the minimum. The lines do go through the gardens also, so we might have to disturb some of the existing gardens
Okay.
to do that.
Yeah.
So that's something we probably wanna figure out when we get closer to that.
Right.
And as part of that, I do have some funds available that we can put towards this.
okay,
So if you run out, say you do put that water line in and you run $1,000 short or something like that, we have access to almost $10,000 in additional money that we could put towards that and some of the tree trimming at the other side. So
excellent, okay.
that was optional. You can probably just go through with that and let me know when the time comes.
Great, okay, yeah, good. I'll talk to Peter about that, and as we get moving on it, we can see how that works out. But I think that, it seems like the timing is good, right?
Yeah.
So,
Perfect, thank
excellent,
you.
all right.
I would, once we get to the point where we wanna start digging things, I'd like to see us actually, draw actually some sort of a print plan so we actually know precisely
Yes,
kind of
yeah.
where we're gonna do
I mean,
things.
there's no, so this is before the commission, because the commission has care and custody of this
Right.
land. There are no resources that are jurisdictional anywhere near these activities.
No, I don't mean, we should
Just to clarify.
build to a plan, not
Correct.
just go out with an excavator and start, digging. You have a print that we're going by, this is where we're going, so we've got some measurements, that's all.
Yep.
Okay,
It doesn't need to be this super complex thing, but it should be something more than on the back of a napkin. that, like,
Okay.
This is the plan of what we're gonna do.
So just to clarify for everyone, we're not talking like an engineered surveyed plan,
No.
just a concept area you're proposing to do what in. So like right here, we keep pointing to this little.
Right, so,
road,
kind of actually.
Scale that out where it actually
When
is.
you go to the tree company that you've marked out, where you want them to cut, where you want,
Yeah, we can do that.
all that
Okay,
stuff,
all
where it
right.
goes in, so they don't make any mistakes that we have to pay for.
It's just showing the limit of work and what the activity is.
okay, all right, so we can I work with you on that, Steve?
I mean, I can mark up, I have a few plans in my office that
Okay.
I can mark up, and
Yeah.
I'll scan and send them to you, and just make sure we're in, I mean,
Okay,
we've been talking about this for years.
I know.
Very similar plans in the area we're proposing and what.
Right.
So I'll mark it up and then send it to you, and if you're
Okay.
okay with it, I'll just forward it on to the
Now,
commission.
do we
That's
have
fine.
do we have a timeline when I've been wanting to get something done down there for a long time.
Right.
Do we have a timeline when we think,
well, we just got the money, I think, because
July.
it started the fiscal year, so,
July.
and that's why I wanted to, thank you for squeezing me in for this meeting, because it came up quickly, and I'm glad you had the time, because I didn't want to wait till September, because I think that, now priorities for Peter and his group might change, so, as soon as possible, so if you want to float me something, Steve, I can run that by, and if you include Peter on it too,
Okay.
everybody can be on board, and we can, as soon as we get the green light from you, we're fine. We just didn't want to do any work until you guys saw this and could approve it.
I'm not gonna be be able to do this till Monday. If you have time and you wanna just doodle something up, you can get
Alright.
ahead of it.
Okay, all right, great.
So I think we just need to vote from the commission that we're okay with the proposal, contingent on the plan being submitted and approved.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put forth a motion to go forward working with Steve and Peter together on a plan to go forward with this plan from the open space.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to allow the open space to work with Steve to move forward with the rehabilitation of Lufkin's Brook Community Gardens as discussed, and developing a plan so we kind of know what we're working from. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All abstaining.
Thank you.
All right. You're
So
welcome.
just so I'm clear, I think, this narrative here and this explanation, that satisfies sort of the explanation of what we're
Yeah, I
doing.
mean,
and if we could
basically
just
what we need
accompany
to
that
kind
with the-
of take the narrative and kind of now put it on just a sheet of
Right.
paper, so we kind of
Okay.
know
All right.
the distances and.
And I mean, we don't have topos and all that stuff, so
No.
it's like the parking area. You kind of highlight the area that's being proposed, and you kind of pull a line out, area to be turned into parking.
Okay,
Tree trimming, kind of highlight that edge along the edge,
Yeah.
that's to the right,
Right.
tree trimming to be done here.
Yeah.
Very kind of low level narrative.
Okay. All right.
The the main doc you submitted is perfect for all the specifics.
Excellent. Okay, terrific. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good night. Probably just go in order, Carl. We'll just go in order with the,
All right.
there's no need to jump around.
It being on or after 7 o'clock, I'm going to reopen a notice of intent for 59 Warren Street. That was land clearing to restore regional farmland and wetland properties. And that was DEP 161-0859. And it's my understanding that the applicant has requested a continuance.
Correct.
Okay, if we could have, what's the next date?
September 19th at 8 o'clock, please.
18th at 8. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue 59 Warren Street, DEP 161-0859, GCC 2018-04 to September 19th at 8 PM.
Second?
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the notice of intent for 59 Warren Street to September 19th at 8 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining. All right. It being on or after 7:10, I'm going to reopen a notice of intent for 388 North Street, DEP 161-0881. That's grading and site work within the buffer, 100 feet of the buffer. If I could have the applicant and consultants, if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Scott Perry?
Corey Leahy.
Thank you. All right. And let's see, we left off, there was a few final things that we wanted.
Want me to go over it?
Yeah, just quickly.
Okay, so, we took out any of the things we added by hand and made sure that was all in here professionally and printed. We moved that restoration line to the 75 that was recommended, in more of a straight line that came out around 5 feet, as you guys would like. We put on there the existing shed that's currently there, that would be removed at the time of the addition. And we put an area for snow removal that was suggested, so that would be pushed away from the wetlands. And then the existing cement steps that would be removed, and the old dirt compacted driveway in the front, that was already mentioned previously. Did you do anything else? Oh, and then we came up with the restoration plan.
Okay. Is there anything else you were thinking, Steve? No. Okay. Any questions from commissioners? I think they completed what we asked for at the last
Yeah,
hearing.
the restoration.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got everything, right? Yeah.
Are any abutters to 388 North Street?
We flattened all their tires. We flattened all their tires and other.
Couldn't make
Ah.
it tonight.
Seeing no abutters, or no one is wanting to speak up. If there are no further questions or discussion, I would entertain a motion.
To approve. I'd like to see a motion to approve 388 North Street, DEP 161-0881, GCC 2019-09, with the plans presented this evening and the restoration plan as noted.
Second?
We have a motion, seconded to approve the notice of intent for 388 North Street, DEP 161-0881, with the plans presented this evening. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All abstaining. I'll entertain a motion to close the notice of intent for 388 North Street.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to close the notice of intent for 388 North Street. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining. Thank you.
I do have a
Thanks.
question.
Thank you.
Too late.
Do I put the number on a board? Mount this
That'll
in there?
come next.
Okay.
I'll reach out to you next week, so you can pick up all the documentation, and I'll guide you through the
Okay.
rest of the process.
Okay, excellent.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank
You're welcome. All right. It being on or after 7:20, I'm going to open up a notice of intent, continuance for 65 Central Street, DEB 161-0883, and that's the parking lot repair and regrading. If I could have the applicant and/or consultant, and if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Bill Dufresne with Merrimack Engineering Services,
Thank you.
and I'm on here on behalf of the owner. Since we were here a month ago, this project is concurrently going through a plan and board review process, and we met with the town planner. Just to refresh your memories, the project was primarily a build-out project, a building build-out, whereas we're adding residential units to a current property that's currently
You're
retail.
converting the second floor to
So,
from.
as such, there's very little site work done. The planning board's emphasis was to beautify this property. So what we have done, and we met with Steve to show him our new planning board plan prior to tonight, is we're removing pavement and creating 6 landscape islands throughout the entire property. Some of them are in proximity within the 100-foot buffer zone. 2 to the rear of the property was going to be the primary residential access point. So they're trying to beautify that area, put a picnic area, play area, lawn area, where residences can do things outside the building. Where we previously were proposing to fix a drainage problem the plan board had brought to our attention. We've looked at that. They're gonna overlay the entire site and mill the site. We've had paving contractors who believe they can fix the ins and outs, the ups and downs with milling and paving. So the previous proposal, which had regrading, treatment swale, has been taken off the table. And essentially, we're here with a project that involves creating landscape islands and a repaving within the buffer zone.
Are these landscaping islands gonna be like in the existing parking area?
Yes, so they'll be removing asphalt at the ends of stalls
Oh, you
and
mean those things that
entranceways.
suck up the parking spaces?
Yeah, those things, and putting in some bermed areas with landscaping. And then we did, at your request, move the 3 dumpsters, aren't even in an enclosure, about 100 feet away from the wetland, in an enclosed area, where runoff from beneath them will not be directed towards the wetlands. Steve did ask that we add the riverfront area to the plan, which we've done. None of the work associated with the septic system is in that riverfront zone. There's existing pump tanks and septic tanks that are staying in place. We are putting in a new leach field, which is outside the 200-foot riverfront zone. So with that, Steve, we had asked if the need for a peer review was necessary. Steve felt it wasn't. We were hoping it wouldn't be, especially since we've minimized the project and grading an area in proximity to the wetlands. He has mentioned there's some outstanding orders.
Yes.
We did a quick review. Our attorney did a quick review, and we found two
So we
notice of intents, an 84 one.
Yeah, we definitely need to resolve these before we
Right,
kinda close this
understood,
out.
understood. We found an 84 and a revised 84, order conditions, file number 161-44, that we did not find a certificate of compliance. We found an 88 order conditions, 161-107, with a certificate of compliance. Their legal department sent me their title policy. They've bought the property, they sold the property to another entity within their corporation, they refied the property, have 3 title insurances, packets they sent to me that said there were no encumbrances and nothing they could find in the deed. So, you know, we're working to find out what the open cases are and work with you to get them resolved and closed up.
Right, because I don't want to have 3 floating out there.
Understood, understood.
So this is just an opportunity to explain the changes that are going on, and,
Right.
you know, we're just gonna continue to the next meeting.
Right.
Most of the changes to the plan are pretty straightforward, so really it's the old order of conditions and closing those out that are the holdup. And so hopefully by the next meeting, we'll be able to close out both COs, with 2 COCs and an order of conditions,
Have you found more than the 2 I referred to?
just those 2.
Okay.
I don't know
All
the
right.
difference between the amended, like there's that first one, there's 2 different,
There
I
was a-
still can't figure out the difference between the 2, but.
There was, yeah, whatever it was, there's a revised one, and then did you find the certificate of compliance for the second one? I have a copy, you want it?
We'll just do it as a packet.
All right, gotcha.
Wait till you put the request in for the first one.
All right, fair enough.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm looking for a continuance on this one.
September 19th at 7 o'clock, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue 65 Central Street, DEP 1610883, GCC 2019-11 to September 19th at
7.
7 o'clock.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the notice of intent for 65 Central Street to September 19th at 7 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving right along, it being on or after 7:30, I'm going to reopen notice of intent for 51 West Main Street, DEP 161-0877, construction of a commercial building and 7 townhouses. If I could have the applicant and a consultant, if you could identify yourself for the record, please. Who's presenting here?
Tyler Park with DeRosa Environmental.
John Colantoni, applicant. We also have present John Duggar, the architect.
Thank you.
And Thad Berry, the engineer. So thank you for having us tonight. We're excited about being back. I'm going to turn it over to Tyler from DeRosa Environmental, and he'll take it from there.
Can I just chime in with,
Go ahead.
before we get into the weeds? The third-party review is still, in my opinion, ongoing. In all third-party reviews, there are items identified that the consultant cannot answer. It's the commission's job to answer those, so they identify things that they can't resolve. Waivers are required. That's up to the commission to make a decision. In my opinion, the third-party review is not done yet. There are items that are, I believe they still need to go back and hash out with the consultants. I believe it's premature for the commission to do any heavy lifting and make any input, because it's still up to Jillian, our third-party reviewer, still should be discussing this with their consultants. So my recommendation was to continue. They have the right to come in and discuss anything they want. That's why they're here
Yeah,
tonight.
it's pretty typical that the two sets of consultants kind of iron out some of those differences and then bring the final agreement to the commission, and then we kind of
So I
look
believe-
at it and vote on it. And
So I believe this is premature. We can't schedule a site walk yet. We can't really vote on anything.
well, I guess
We're kind of jumping in a little bit before we
yeah,
should be
and
as far
I
as
guess
these discussions.
do we? I'll ask. I mean, is from DeRosa's standpoint,
Yep.
what's the stumbling block in terms of getting the final?
So currently, kind of where we left off, Jillian has done her review. She issued us
Right.
comments. We've responded to those comments, and we're both on the same page. And so we listed that. We had our responses on here. With Jillian, I'm not sure, were they reviewed? Did you review them, or?
Well, so that's the other thing. This came out 2 days ago. So I got, this was forwarded by Jillian. I was out the day it was forwarded. Julie sent it around. I'll be honest, I haven't even read this yet. I haven't, all I see is back and forth, back and forth, back and
The
forth.
one with red in it, right?
Jillian was not able to come tonight. I wasn't even able to get in touch with her to get her feedback on this. As far as, are they in agreement? Typically what happens, is we get that something from Jillian saying, stamp, I'm done. I've done everything I can. These decisions are now up to the commission. I mean, again, I haven't read this in every single bit of it.
I can summarize it.
But I guess it's
Are we
great-
talking about
it's-
the one that was in red,
You know-
bolded?
Correct,
Yes.
yes. So I mean, summarizing in all this, again, I'm your hired representative here.
Yep.
I haven't read this yet. Having the applicant summarize it, it doesn't, I mean, this is breaking protocol every step of the way, which is why I recommended continuing tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to waste everyone's time, but I tried to get ahead of this. So I don't recommend the commission discussing anything tonight. This just needs to be continued. There's a butters here, this is taking up a lot of people's time.
I mean, we're trying to kind of fast track this and be efficient, and that's kind of why we're here tonight. We want to be fluent with you, and any questions, concerns, we want to address them, so we're not, working slower at this. So the responses were in red. Those were our responses to Jillian's comments. And we've been in discussion with Jillian and Stephen as well, in correspondence of any questions, getting information back. And we've done that at this point. All of our responses are in red, and they address her comments, and we're in agreement. The one thing Jillian needs is just the revised plans to show some of these changes, but we're in agreement with making those changes. So as far as we see, I mean, we've addressed them at this point with a proposed project, and we want to come before you tonight to set up a site visit, because
Yeah,
So
that's
Yeah.
the next step, once the two consultants kind of agree and
We
they
can't
have
do
that
that.
discussion.
We can't do that until Jillian.
do a site walk.
Well, if we knew when the two of you could essentially finalize, we could actually, we could pre-set something up if we knew there was a timeline. If we knew, if that discussion was gonna be completed in 2 weeks or a week or what have you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Tyler, if I'm correct, the feedback from Jillian, 99% of it, we didn't have any problems with, correct?
Correct.
So we're in pretty much agreement. We thought it was a great report, it was very helpful, and, just about all of it, we're in agreement with. So we thought it would be great to, share that, and I understand we're not trying to, break any rules or whatever. And if a site walk, like you said, could be set up, and if there's a date that has to be set for that to take place, to have the stamp, for lack of better terms, to use Steve's word, from Jillian, that's more than fair. There are some neighbors here that, probably some against, some for, and I don't want to see their time wasted, and, they've come to a public hearing. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from the neighbors on different things as well, so.
And then, I mean, I guess just to add, I mean, we know everyone's schedules are crazy busy, so we kind of want to be proactive, find a mutual date that everyone can attend. The site's not going to change, so with a review or not, so we'd like you to see it. So then going to this next meeting with getting the stamp from Jillian approval, you've already seen the site, and we can progress from there.
Well, Steve, do we have any feedback when Jillian,
Yeah, again, I got this 2 days ago. This is,
I mean, what I would propose is we probably could schedule a site walk, assuming that they can iron out the differences between now and that site walk. Otherwise, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So the whole purpose of the site walk is once we have everything agreed to, and essentially we go out and say, yep, that's what it is.
And we've been in touch with Jillian, and the only thing is right now is just to give her the final set of plans with the changes that we've agreed upon.
I mean,
And that's it.
I mean, as Steve indicated, it's normally protocol that we kind of have all the signed out ahead of time. I understand you're trying to, expedite the project, certainly, and.
so the standard is not, I mean, and I looked at this really, really quickly. Only one comment, one of the comments, number whatever it was, it says comment resolved. Everything else has feedback. So the commission shouldn't say, yep, get the plan in and we'll have the site walk. Jillian has to get back to us and say, I'm 100% done and satisfied with my review, not this offer for a plot plan to be sent to us. So feel free
No,
to schedule.
I'm only talking in
That's-
terms of assuming that this work can be done within the next X amount of weeks.
2 weeks.
That, so as we're getting into the end of the season here, it doesn't get pushed to the point where we're in a shutdown mode, we're not doing sidewalks anymore.
Yep, understood.
And to be fair, once you go through this document and read our responses, we're in agreement.
Okay.
So,
And we totally respect what Steve's saying. We're not trying to, break through. Your idea, I think, is excellent if it could be scheduled, and then it's on us with Jillian to.
Because,
we can stand through
for
it.
whatever reason, if it hasn't been collated together, you can always cancel a sidewalk.
right.
But I
Exactly.
can't, wait till, I don't necessarily wanna wait till September, but then just schedule the site walk, and then we're doing kind of in a shutdown at the end of October. But that's not agreeing, we're not voting on it at that point, but at least you scheduled that site walk.
I mean, again, I'm just talking the process and precedent that's been set before. The commission can schedule a site walk, and if that's your plan, we can make it happen. I'm just letting you know.
I mean, we've actually done, again, it depends on the type of site walk too. This is a site walk reviewing a line type of situation. We've actually done site walks just,
Winter, yeah.
which I don't
Well,
like.
keep in
to
mind,
do.
this is not a wetland line
Right.
evaluation. That's already been done, right?
Right.
This is a notice of intent, so you could do this off that season, off schedule season, because it's not looking at the wetland line. It's kind of concept and where the buildings are, what's being proposed. So you could do it, past that October 15th date.
But, yeah, ideally, we want to do it
course,
sooner,
of course.
yeah, than
Well,
later.
yeah, that, I don't really wanna do, this is where I don't wanna do it. I don't wanna do the site walks once all the vegetation is gone.
Right, now you can see vegetation, everything's easy to see, summer, so.
So-
It would be ideal if we could set.
It would be nice if I had, had the information from Jillian that she could have this done in 2 weeks, and then you could say,
I'll reach out to her first thing and get her.
because I
moving.
don't wanna break precedent either, but I'm trying to come up with a solution that's just not being, totally restrictive and not willing to work with people.
And
But-
would that, scheduling wise, would you think possibly like next week, week after, we could work something out?
I would say probably the week after, maybe,
Okay.
and I
We
think,
wanna throw around some dates and times, 'cause that's, I mean, we can say concept wise, but it's better to pick a date and time.
well, I think in reality, and this is the other point, as the days get shorter and shorter, we get more attendance usually if we do them after work versus Saturday morning because of, people's schedules and such. And, I think you don't wanna wait too late in the year to do it, otherwise we won't get anyone.
2 weeks from tonight at 6 PM.
If I may ask, Mr. When is the next meeting for conservation?
September 19th, I think.
Correct.
And hopefully we could try and schedule that before, just as we think we're gonna have everything in hand, before then, so,
And if we don't, then we'll cancel the site walk.
right.
If I can make a suggestion.
Yeah.
I guess September 5th, which would give us enough time, give Jillian time, and that would still be 2 weeks before the next meeting.
Yeah, that works.
What day is that on?
September 5th, which is a Thursday, with just a suggestion, because that would be 2 weeks before your next meeting.
Give us more.
It'd give us a little bit more time
need
to work with
change it.
Jillian.
And, I would, make the motion contingent upon the agreement that Jillian has, everything has been satisfied
Right.
between both sets of consultants. And if
Definitely.
not, we'll schedule it again.
Sounds good. It was at 6.
6 o'clock.
6.
I'm sure Butter's gonna ask the question, so I'm gonna ask it for them. Are Butters welcome on this site walk? I think that's more a question towards you.
In every town that I've been in, and thank you for saying that, Steve, it's been up to the board.
Well, it's actually, it's up to you because it's your property.
It's a legal
We,
thing.
we can ask, but, we can't require you, because we can go on a site walk because it's a hearing before us, but you don't have to allow abutters, but we always ask the question, will you? And, some
We
do,
have
some
no-
don't.
If the board doesn't have any problem with it, we have no problem with the abutters coming on the site walk, because, we're open book, we want them to be a part of it, we've tried to have open lines of communication, so we have no problem with that if the board has no problem with that.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, will the, because there's some neighbors here, and a lot of them have been good feedback,
I will open it up for
Okay,
discussion
I
as
just
part
wanted
of the
to-
process.
thank you.
And, again, before we get a lot of, detailed, again, we do wanna get the, our review finalized, so then we have, the document to compare with. I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt, since it's been a while, if you just do like an overview and not really get into a, formal discussion of all the nitty-gritty.
Yep.
And then, again, we schedule the site walk, and, we get our review collated between your information.
Okay, brief summary, 7 townhouses right here, associated parking areas. And then up front there's commercial building and also parking areas and access in and out. Stormwater basins located on the back, which can be seen here. There's a lot of wetland restoration, buffer zone restoration here. It's been impacted over the years, storage of materials. So this green area will be restored into a meadow. And there's a lot of debris that's out there now, so that'll be taken out and restored and disposed of properly. And then there's also the septic systems that are going in as well, and you can see those kind of in the light areas here. And there is the wetland, and it's over in this location. This is that lighter green area, and that borders this pond. kind of to the northeast direction. And that's a brief
Okay.
explanation of it. In regards to the wetland resource areas, we've been trying to keep everything outside of that. Previously, all this was either gravel or storage area for the antique business that operated there. So there have been alternatives that have been talked about, and there's a letter that addresses that, and we've sent that along as well. Before they were gonna 2 units over here, which was it was 6 and 7. Is that right?
Yep.
6 and 7. They were in this location, but if we were to move them here, it would be further into the wetlands than this option, and so that's why we've stuck with this option for this project.
Okay.
A couple of changes on this that I don't think has to do with conservation, but just where you saw the other plan before, there was a 3-lane entrance exit. On the suggestion of the planning board and stuff, it's 2 lanes, 1 exit, 1 entrance. And on the other side would remain just an exit for the residents only. So that's one of the changes here. Dad, you might be able to help me. I'm not sure if the little building there was there at the original
You
presentation.
mean that like shed type building there?
No, over here,
over
way
there,
down
all
to
right.
the corner here.
Oh, right over here.
Yeah, that would be the sprinkler room.
Sprinkler on.
So those were a couple of the changes.
Okay, are there any butters to 51 West Main Street? If you want to make a comment, you can. If you identify yourself for the record, please. But again, we're trying to limit this to a kind of a high level because we're not making any decisions tonight until we go out and collate our information between both sets of consultants, go out and look at the site, and then we'll move forward. But you certainly can make a comment if you want.
Can I just ask a question? I'm in a butter. My name is Raquel Valcourt. I'm at 14 North Street. Could we comment at a later date once we see the report?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anytime during the process. Until the hearing is closed, abutters can always make comments when I open it up for a butter comment. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, any other comments from commissioners at this point? Again, I don't want to get too deep into this at this point.
One in the back.
Oh, yes, please.
My name is Janice Thompson. I live at 23 Prospect Street. When all of this started, I came to the first few meetings and I had a lot of questions. I've met with John and some other neighbors, and he's been able to answer my questions in a very positive way. And looking at what they propose to put down there is so much nicer than what I'm looking at now.
Mhm.
So I definitely approve of this project. I would like to see that go ahead. It would really enhance the downtown and the streets around it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
The other thing, the commission, we need to do is we need to schedule that, schedule a site work contingent upon
Julian's.
Jillian's final review and feedback. And that's, I think that's a legitimate way to do it. I mean, so if we don't have it, we'll hold off on the site walk till we get it, so we won't really break the precedent. So but we won't just be dead in the water for another month and then nothing goes forward. It's my
We appreciate that.
thoughts here. And that would be, someone wants to make a motion on a contingent site walk on September 5th at 6?
That's it.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to schedule a site walk for 51 West Main Street, TEP 1610877, for September 5th at 6:00 p.m., contingent upon an acceptable plan from Jillian and the engineers involved.
Second?
There's a motion, it's been seconded to conduct a contingent site walk September 5th at 6 p.m., and that's contingent upon our third-party reviewer and the applicant's wetland scientists agreeing on the information in terms of the site review. Is there any further discussion?
I just had a quick question about a butter notification. Is there a way for them to be on an email list so they know when the meetings are?
So they receive
Initial.
in the mail through the initial process of the notice of intent application. They're notified once, and they're responsible for tracking it after that, either being here or calling or emailing me and tracking it that way.
Yeah, otherwise-
You don't
right.
re-notify every
Yeah,
meeting.
because it would, some of these hearings go on for, a long, long time. It just, it wouldn't even be possible, I don't
So I
think.
think for one of them, they went on for like 10 years. It was like a 3-year gap. They re-notified after 3 years, but it was more of a courtesy. There's nothing in the regulations that require that.
Wow, 10 years,
We've had them go longer.
wow.
So there's no way to do
I mean, there's butters here. I'm in communication with 2 of them via email.
Mhm.
So again, there's some responsibility on them to reach out to us. We can't chase them.
that. Gotcha.
And again,
We'll also work on getting the word out as well. I mean, the more people that see, I think the better.
That would be
and
helpful.
again, as you'd indicated before, you have no issue if abutters would like to attend the site walk on September 5th at 6 PM.
No problem.
Okay, just to be clear.
The only thing I ask of everyone, if we can meet in the front parking lot, so people aren't driving down into the back. So if we all meet in the front, and then we can walk wherever you wanna walk.
Okay. And if for whatever reason that it has to get rescheduled, again, we'll have to try to get the word out, but
Right.
hopefully, the information can be collated between both sets of consultants, questions answered, and we agree, and then this could sync and not needlessly delay. I'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining. Motion carries. September 5th.
Okay.
Thank you.
And, okay, at this point,
Continuation.
hmm?
You just continue.
Yeah, I need to continue this. Again, the goal here was not to really solve anything other than to have that initial discussion and see if we couldn't get the site walk scheduled, so.
So we're talking September 19th at 7:15, please.
September,
That's the
Seven-
meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
7:15, Steve.
make a motion to continue 51 West Main Street to September 19th at 7:15.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the notice of intent for 203 East Main Street to September 19th at 7:15. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstained. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Steve.
And let's see. It being on or after 8 o'clock, I'm going to, let's see, continue an ANRAD for 47 West West Street.
203
What
East
about
Main.
7:45?
203 East Main Street, 7:45.
Oh, sorry, I walked right by that one. It being on or after 7:45, I'm going to reopen notice of intent for 203 East Main Street. And that's construction of a residential recycling drop-off area within the buffer zone to the wetland. And we've been asked to continue that.
To when?
September 19th.
7:30?
18,
Yes, please.
7:30.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue 203 East Main Street, DEP 1610857, GCC 2018-05 to September 19th at 7:30 PM.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the notice of intent for 203 East Main Street to September 19th at 7:30 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining. And now, it being on or after 8 o'clock, I'm going to reopen an ANRAD hearing for 47 West Street, DEP 161-0884, and that's a wetlands delineation. And we've been asked by the applicant to continue that as well. And I'm assuming we're going to want to also continue that to September 19th?
Please. So this is the third-party review is still ongoing. So
Okay.
8:15, please.
8:15. Someone would like to so motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue 47 West Street to September 19th at 8:50.
Second?
And we have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the ANRAD for 47 West Street to September 19th at 8:15 PM. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining. All right, moving right along. Being on or after 8:05, I'm going to open a new ANRAD for Carlton Drive, DEP 161-0885. And that's a wetland delineation, and if we could have the applicant and a consultant, and if you could identify yourself. Anyone here?
I think they might be in the hall.
Oh.
Is that LEC?
Yep.
Let me grab them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You gentlemen can identify yourself for the record, please.
Yes, I'm Rich Kirby from LEC Environmental Consultants.
Thank you.
And Jason Mello.
G
from
Mello Disposal.
G Mello Disposal. And Michael Lahan from the Moore and Cameron Group.
Thank
So
you.
We filed an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for a property at the end of Carlton Drive. It's in the southeastern portion of town.
Before we get too far, did you gentlemen have the green cards?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a 14 and a half roughly acre property. North is to the right, pointing to the right on the plan. So we have Interstate 95, the corridor along the bottom of the plan. We have Carlton Drive here. We have industrial commercial development associated with Carlton Drive to the west, and some wetland areas and residential development to the north. So we delineated a number of resource areas on this property in May and June of this year. Essentially, within the southern portion of the site, we have a bordering vegetated wetland, which extends by way of a culvert underneath a gravel access road, which gravel access road extends from the cul-de-sac into the site, and connects to a wetland that continues onto the Interstate 95 property. It's basically a drainage ditch along the base of the slope that descends from the pavement. We have another bordering vegetated wetland up in here, which borders on an intermittent stream that flows beneath Route 95 in a easterly direction. It's shown as intermittent on the USGS map. It becomes perennial as Muddy Brook to the east of 128. We ran the stream stats at the point at which it becomes perennial, and the watershed area and the 99% flow duration are way under the thresholds for perennial streams, so we know it's intermittent in accordance with the act. We have an isolated vegetated wetland here, which is just disconnected from the bordering vegetated wetland by way of some uplands. And we also have a couple of vernal pools. There's standing water, roughly 10 to 18 inches of standing water with some pockets up to 2 feet deep within the central portion of this wetland here. And we evaluated the site during the vernal pool season for the month of April and May. And we observed wood frog egg masses in here and American toad eggs and breeding activity in here. So we have one obligate and one facultative vernal pool species, which qualifies this as certifiable under natural heritage and under your bylaw. There's a second area of standing water right in here where we saw evidence of American toad egg masses and breeding. So that's just a facultative vernal pool species. Doesn't qualify as vernal pool under the Act, but the way your bylaw is written, it says any vernal pool species. So we included the 100-foot offset from both the certifiable vernal pool under the Natural Heritage Program and under your bylaw here, it's in blue. The 100-foot buffer zone is in orange. And of course you have the 50, 75 running along with it here. So that's basically it. The site's pretty low and flat. There's a relative topographic high point in the center with topography descending to the north and south with elevation gradients of roughly 3 to 4 feet across the site. Portions of it around the wetlands are forested, but this is all kind of open with meadow and scrub shrub type vegetation. There's some debris and trash and things out there.
Yeah, as I recall, that was cleared a long time ago.
Yeah. So it is an interesting site, but we filed the ANRAD to receive approval of all the resource areas on the property, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Real quick, I want to give a brief history of this property. So, 10 plus years ago, there was an order of conditions
Yes,
issued.
I know.
They started the work, cut the road in, did a little bit of the work, and then did nothing for a long time. And then, probably 3 or 4 years ago, started bringing fill in again, and the commission filed an enforcement action against the owner because they were doing it outside of the window. Their order of conditions had expired. So that flat area in the middle, that's kind of meadow, is actually fill. That's been growing in over the past few years.
But we did, there was an initial, right, there was a notice of intent. They were actually gonna construct a building
Yeah,
out
there's
there.
a very large building.
Yeah, it was gonna be right in that central area.
Yeah. So that's not a meadow. I mean, it might look like one when you go to a sidewalk. It might
Yeah,
look like a meadow. It's an old cleared, filled-in area, but if you just walk right through it, it looks like a meadow. But I just
Yeah.
wanted it's got a history to it, I guess. So it's not raw land. It's heavily. It was.
Oh, yeah, was that 10 years ago we approved?
It might be more.
Maybe even more, actually.
About 15 years ago.
It did say 10 plus.
Yeah.
You know me in dates.
Time flies.
Okay. I just want to kind of give you an overview before you start asking questions on the property.
So here's another one we probably wouldn't wanna do a third party again. On this. Any questions from commissioners?
Not until third party's done.
Again, that kind of would be the normal process. We do the third party, we look at that, compare it to your information, then we go out and do a site walk, and then we figure out from there what makes sense. And then we approve all the lines and
Mm-hmm. Is there I know that the bylaw talks about it, there's a deadline for delineating resource areas and having them reviewed. Is it October 15th, is it?
Correct.
I think it is, yeah.
That's you too, October 15th. Okay, so, just so I have it straight, so if the third-party reviewer and I come to agreement on the lines and the commission has their site visit by October 15th, is that the deadline? So even though a hearing may fall after October 15th, so long as the review is complete, the commission can vote to approve and issue the order of resource area delineation after
Correct.
October. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that.
So that's why,
timeline.
that's why, we're coming into that season where
Right.
we have time compression, the days are getting shorter, we need to
Yeah.
get things done, and,
Yeah.
and if you're looking to gather information, it's kind of important.
Okay. All right, good. I'm glad I understand that. Thank you.
So does anyone have any questions at this point? Because I would again entertain a motion to probably have BSC to a third party.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to have BFC do a third-party review on
Carlton Drive.
Carlton Drive. Is there an actual address, a number address to this?
Let me look. I don't think there is. There's Assessor's Map 15, Lot 46, if you want to be specific, but I don't think there's a
Just
number
Carlton
assigned to
Drive,
it.
then. Okay. Carlton Drive.
Why wouldn't it have a number?
It doesn't have a street address.
Does not have a street address.
But it's Assessor's Map 15, Lot 46, if you wanted to specify that in your motion.
So,
We have
But other properties up there have numbers, right?
The first couple do.
Not all of them?
The one on the right at the end. There's 2 properties at the end, one left and right. Neither one of them has numbers.
So do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
We have a motion that's been seconded to conduct a third-party review with BSC, and that's map, for parcel map 15, lot 45, Carlton Drive.
46.
46, sorry. 46. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, all abstaining. So I think we want to see if we can't get her to kind of expedite. Are there any abutters to the parcel of Carlton Drive? Yes. If you would identify yourself for the record, you may ask questions. But at this point, we're just trying to figure out where the wetlands are. We're not discussing construction or anything. That would be on another type of hearing. But here, we're just trying to figure out where the wetland lines are, where the vernal pools are, what the resources are, what they have out there.
My name is Lee Craig, 3 Spalding Road.
Yes.
I bought the property. Years ago, when that land was cleared, it was done before Conservation Commission had approval of the property, and as a result of that, there were some cement posts put in place to determine what the wetlands would have been at that time. Since that time, we've had beavers move into the area, and they've flooded a lot of that land, including some of that that's shown on the map. And as of last winter, we noticed 2 beaver houses in that area. So it is a wetland that's continuous use even through the winter. The beaver is pretty active in the winter. We can see trails of going over the dams that he's built, several rows of dams as they go up into the area. So we're concerned that it is a wetland, and any construction that's done in there, how is the water going to be used to defer from the wetland, not be included in the wetland, and so on. And I think the posts that are in the ground now may not be at the edge of the old, they may have been at the edge of the old wetland, but they may not now be the edge of the new wetland. So our concern is treating those areas.
Well, just wetlands are always changing. That's why the decision the commission makes about where these lines are only is good for 3 years, because they're constantly growing or shrinking and constantly changing, be it a stream, wetland. As you said, it doesn't look the same as it did a number of years ago.
Been there for over 40 years.
And those beavers, we have no control over them. They do their own thing. Any other questions or comments? But this is just the initial phase of this process. We're hiring a third-party consultant who's going to review their information, and they'll compare them and come up, and we'll vote on what ultimately the resources are in that area.
Will we be notified of that another mailing?
Yeah.
If there's if there's going to be a notice of intent hearing, yes.
If and when a project is designed and applied for to the Conservation Commission, we will have to re-notify the abutters. So that there'll be another hearing scheduled, and you'll be notified of that.
But we'll continue this hearing to a time, date, and certain, and we'll do that tonight, so you'll know when the next meeting is gonna be. But this is just the initial phase. But we probably won't meet till after this review is done, and we have that information in front of us. Any further discussion? Because at this point, we probably will continue. And
September 19th.
September 19th seems to be the night.
8:30.
September 19th at 8:30. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue Carlton Drive DEP 1610885 GCC 2019-13 to September 19th at 8:30.
Second.
We have a motion that's been seconded to continue the ANRAD for Carlton Drive to September 19th at 8:30 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
And we'll certainly, you can coordinate with Steve in terms of the third party to make sure
Okay, yeah, we'll do that.
that gets done. Okay. And I thought we were done, we have like 2 or 3 more. Give me a second page, I was gonna ignore that one. Okay.
Yeah.
It being on or after 8:10, I'm going to reopen the notice of intent for 203 East Main Street, and that's the construction of a residential recycling drop-off area within the buffer, and we've been asked to continue that. And, let's see,
September 19th
Sep-
at 8:16.
September 19th at 8:16.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right.
So moved.
Excellent.
Second.
We have a motion to continue 203 East Main Street to September 19th at 8:16 PM. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Or abstaining? Thank you. All right. Two more. And let's see, being on or after 8:15, I'm going to open up a new ANRAD for 107 Tenney Street, and that's a wetland delineation, GCC 2019-15. If I could have the applicant and/or consultant, and if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Good evening, Greg Hockmuth from Williams and Sparagus, here representing the Huntington Development Group for the abbreviated Notice of Resource Area delineation filed for 107 Tenney Street. I have the green cards.
Okay.
There's a lot of green.
There's a lot of wetlands out there. Everybody knows where Tenney Street is, I think, right? This is right on that really bad corner at the bottom of the hill, on the right.
Oh, yeah. I see.
It used to be, I think, Molson Electric on the corner there. It's not Molson Electric anymore.
Yep, yep.
So is that-
Probably a long time ago. So we were hired to delineate the wetland resource areas out here.
Okay.
We weren't the first company. There were a lot of flags we found out there. I don't know if anything's been brought before this commission before.
There's a solar company that.
Yeah, that was a
notice of intent stage, but they
few-
did flag it, and they had some preliminary discussions with them.
I think it was ECR, I think I saw on the flags that we found. We agreed with a lot of them. But just to get your bearings, this is that corner I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
This is heading up the hill towards the overpass. So really just right on the corner. The site appears to have been historically manipulated a while ago. There's some large trees, but there's a very thin loam layer, and it goes right into a sea layer, and in many instances it's a hydric sea layer, so it's very wet, very flat, almost looked like somebody had a dozer in there probably 30 years ago. The wettest portion is out here where you see this potential vernal pool. It's a vernal pool. We just don't have the evidence yet. I'd be shocked if we didn't come back with every obligate under the sun. It was full of tadpoles. We didn't make an attempt to identify the tadpoles.
You know, our bylaw assumes it is anyway, so.
Right, they appeared to be wood frog tadpoles. So even though it's labeled potential vernal pool, that's only because that's what Mass GIS and Natural Heritage currently calls it. But we fully expect it to be determined to be a vernal pool, not only under your bylaw, but in accordance with the Natural Heritage requirements as well. But abutting the wetland that touches the vernal pool is a very extensive BVW that continues in this direction off-site. There was a little upland island in here. We hung wetland flags around it. We probably don't even need the peer review consultant to look at those because they are within the wetland, but we're showing them. There's another linear BVW that extends in this direction, and it enters a culvert that flows under Tenney, eventually parallels the highway, and heads over to the heron rookery that you see behind Morehouse's old farm.
So how many acres is the whole site at this?
It's 463,000 square feet, so I'd have to do that
Divided by
math.
44,000.
Right.
Do that quickly. Really quickly, please.
So it's a large site. It's a thick site. It's easy to walk through here. This is really a bit of a nightmare to traverse through. There is an upland area here that has the potential for something to possibly happen there. It's
What do they want to do?
well, right now it's just to see if there's the feasibility to do anything out here. you know, not only do they have to contend with the wetlands and everything that goes along with those, but there's some serious site distance concerns, et cetera, just with that corner, and that just happens to be where the only upland area is. So it could turn out that this turns into nothing. But locking in the wetlands and allowing us to do some concepts is really what we're hoping to achieve with this step.
And when did you do your review out there? You said if there were
it was-
tadpoles out there was probably a while ago, earlier in the season.
So we've been out here a couple times, but I think we physically hung flags for the first time. Let me just look at the data forms. June. We were out there in June. June 20th. Yep. And then we had walked it last fall. And then we got the green light to actually hang some flags this past spring.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in conjunction to all that, where are the tension wires, the electrical wires there?
Those would be right down here.
Oh, okay, all right.
And there were a
In the
lot of
woods.
wetland flags on that piece
Yeah,
as well. I
yeah.
think somebody
I see
may
the
have.
flags, yeah.
We permitted a house down the way, and they flagged it all the way through,
Okay.
probably 5 years ago.
As kids, there was a giant rock, probably about here, that we called Elephant Rock.
Yes.
That's a
Yep,
little bit further
yeah.
down the road on the right.
There used to be a 200-year home right next to that corner.
There's
35
evidence of
years
an
ago.
old foundation
Yeah,
hole, and you can
yeah.
see where the driveway came in.
Yeah.
It's really tough to walk through there now. It's all bittersweet and,
Yeah,
you know, it's
yeah.
chest
They
high.
deconstructed it 30 years ago, labeled it, and then sent it north and reconstructed it.
Okay, well, that explains why a lot of it appears to be maintained at some
Right,
point in the past.
Yeah.
So this is another one I think we probably need to do a third-party review too.
The one thing I wanted to mention, and we told our client that this was definitely going to be peer reviewed, and that the town usually uses BSC. I had told Steve about a potential conflict that I had, although it's very loose, and I think we could have got around that one.
Okay.
I'm on the board of directors with one of Jillian's colleagues at MACC, and Jillian just drafted a buffer zone guidance document with us. That I think is fine, but Huntington Development Group is currently permitting project with BSC. So I just wanted to mention that in full disclosure. If something is proposed out here, the client does, the client and their attorney appeared, they do think that there's going to be some abutter concerns, and they just want to make sure
Well,
that
we
this
should-
being
right,
the first
we
step.
should clearly identify it and document it and make sure it's out in the open.
Right. So we did disclose that through email. We hope to talk about it. But yeah,
So you're saying company that owns this is using BSC for permitting of this or something else?
something else. So Huntington Development is our client. They don't own it. They have a purchase and sale with the seller or the current owner. And they're currently permitting a project
You know,
with BSC.
But it's a different group in
Yeah.
BSC. It's not Jillian's group. Is that
You know,
correct?
As long as,
Right.
I don't know, as long as the State Ethics Commission says it's okay, I'm fine. I like Jillian. She does a great job. We just don't want to run into a conflict
Well, I
of
think in this
interest
case,
issue.
it's important to formally document that we know about, not necessarily a conflict, but a potential. It's the appearance of impropriety, which is
So-
always the concern, not.
Greg and I have communicated back and forth. I have communicated with Jillian. Her response was, she'll do whatever the commission's most comfortable with.
Right.
But she mentioned the person I was working that is kind of a different group that really has very little to do with what she's working on.
But I think it
in
would
her
be
little
also,
subgroup.
it would also be helpful if she made a statement that she feels she can be impartial too,
Correct.
as in part of the, so we kind of have everyone's kind of opening up and saying like, this is a potential, we're not saying it is a conflict, but everyone knows, so some time downstream, someone says, oh, you didn't yes, I disclosed that.
Right.
And if someone feels that they can't be impartial at that point, then they can step back.
Right. We run into it a lot where
It's a relatively small field. I mean, in terms of, you know, you work with one on one side and another one on another side in terms of being an applicant and or consultant. I mean, we've worked with a lot of different companies.
Right.
So I asked Jillian if she had any ideas on who else we could use as far as people that she works with that she has a lot of respect for, and there are people that are before us every day.
Yeah.
So to your point,
So
I mean, we could go and say, well, this is a concern. I'm not as concerned
And
about
I
it, but
think
if
there
you
was-
were, then we have to go for
I
someone
think there was a
else.
point where we were actually,
We were in Worcester.
we were looking at some company that was like in Western Mass, and it became a problem because we were trying to get out of this region, and it becomes a problem for the wetland scientists to make it to meetings because they're living, 75 miles
Our
away.
previous consultant was in Worcester.
I mean, we can make a call too to the State Ethics Commission just to make sure that everybody's i's are dotted and t's are crossed. But, it sounds like Steve's talked to Jillian. She doesn't think it's an issue, if that's what I'm hearing. As long as it's not, we're fine. Jillian's reviewed everything that we've done before this commission, and that's why I mentioned BSC to the client, and he said, well, that could be a problem. I'm currently working with them on another project.
Well, if it's a large corporation, it's a different division that doesn't have a direct reporting chain.
It is a big company.
In other words, Jillian isn't reporting to the person who's making the decisions on that other project. That's who you want to look at.
So I'll reach out to Jillian Monday morning and get.
So you have direct control over that person. You will do the report this way because you report to me. I mean, a large corporation has different divisions that may not ever talk to each other.
And we don't care who the commission uses, to be honest with you.
So-
We would like to get it in before the season shuts off this year.
So-
Yeah,
Find
that would
out-
also work better for Jillian because you can send the stuff to her today, tomorrow. Versus
Exactly.
if I do it Monday and start figuring out who we're gonna go with, it's gonna be at least a week or two delay.
Right.
So I think it would benefit everybody to just
So I
work
think,
out
I
the
think in
Jillian
this case, it's
issues.
important that we document, acknowledge it, make sure we ask the right questions, and again, if someone feels that they can't, in an unbiased fashion,
Mhm.
work with us, we would have to ultimately find someone
And
else.
I'll email Jillian Monday. You can send us both projects to her tomorrow. I'll email her
But
Monday and get
I would call
confirmation.
this more of an appearance of
Potential. Yeah.
bias as opposed to an actual bias. There's a difference. But as far as the Ethics Commission is concerned, it's the appearance that's very important too.
Right. And, I mean, Jillian is as professional as they come, so I wouldn't expect her to give any favoritism or anything like that.
I wouldn't either, but I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank
Yep,
you.
Thank you.
If he didn't, I was going to.
Yeah.
It was coming one way or the other.
Thank
We've been
you
discussing it
both.
for a while, so it's not new.
Because it's better to have that discussion now as opposed to once it's halfway done and then, oh, by the way.
Right.
And this is gonna come up for the next project too. They're being tag teamed.
They're very
together.
close.
Oh, fun times.
So, third-party review, just authorize a third-party review.
I'll entertain a
and-
motion for third-party review for 107 Tenny Street.
And not specify Jillian, just so that there's some flexibility depending on what we come back with.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and it's been seconded to approve a third-party review for 107 Tenny Street. Consultant not specified. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining? And I'll entertain a motion to continue 107 Tenny Street, ANRAD. I'm assuming September 15th, 19th again?
At 8:40, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue 107 Tenny Street, GCC 2019-15, ANRAD to September 19th at 8:40.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to continue the ANRAD for 107 Tenny Street to September 19th at 8:40. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And it being on or after 8:20, I'm going to open another new ANRAD for 91 through 93 Tenny Street, GCC 2019-16, and that is another wetland delineation.
Oh, that's a lot of green too. Wow.
And if you could identify yourself again, I think I remember who you are. But
Yeah, good evening. For the record, Greg Hockmuth from Williams and Sparagus, representing Huntington Development Corp. for the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed for 91 through 93 Tenny Street. This is at the top of the hill, before you get to the turnoff for Long Hill Road.
Okay.
Long Hill Road is here, Tenny Street is here. This is the area that a huge cut was taken out of the hill probably sometime in the late 80s. Neptune Demolition was right across the street, and there's a industrial building right here with a big parking lot that goes around it. There's a big pile of fill here, and I think what's happened is sheet flow coming down the hill gets trapped, and it's resulted in the creation of an isolated vegetated wetland there. It has hydric soils, wetland vegetation. It doesn't hold enough water to be a vernal pool, in our opinion. We haven't seen any standing water, but it is soggy in the spring.
So it could also be an area subject to flooding too, correct?
I doubt it, but we could run those
You
calculations.
also have to look by our bylaw, we have a different definition.
Our bylaw is the size of a pickup truck bed,
Yeah.
volume of pickup truck beds.
Then this probably would
Yeah.
meet that definition, but we'll run those calcs and make sure that it is. In any event, it does have a buffer zone associated with it. It will have all the applicable no disturb zones, no build zones. It is not contiguous with the extensive BVW at the bottom here. This wetland feeds into that last wetland at 107. It goes all the way down behind those buildings.
Wow.
And there's a huge hillside seep here that contributes to the wet portion. This area was very challenging down here. It was challenging because all of the top and subsoil and a good chunk of the parent material was removed from this site. It's very unnatural, it's very flat. They cut into the water table. And in doing so, there's adequate hydrology now to support hydrophytes, so you have a predominance of wetland plants. And in a lot of instances, you have obligate rushes and sedges that go out to an upland herbaceous, I think it was birdfoot trefoil, a yellow flower, that was a very abrupt change in vegetation from wetland to upland. But upslope of the upland plants, there's a lot of loosestrife and some other facultative wetland plants. So we spent a lot of time digging out there. It's very compact. So I imagine that whoever the consultant is going to want to do the same thing. And it's possible that some of these flags could move. It's very subjective. We used best science approach that we could there. It's not your typical wetland. The back portion here where the sea flags are is very obvious. It's natural. It's still a natural landscape. But everything down here has been altered and manipulated. But again, there is a chunk of upland here. There is a chunk of upland here. So it's not entirely wet. There are some portions outside your jurisdiction. So depending on where the wetland lines land, something could be feasible out here as well.
Can you flag that in the same time frame as the other?
Yeah, this one might have been a little, let me look.
While you're doing that, any interest or need, you think, to sink some wells to figure out where that wetland line is? I mean, it's subjective, but that's kind of more definitive. That would take waiting till next season.
Yeah, and that may be fine if we can't agree on a line, but I suspect whoever the consultant is, we can put our heads together and hopefully agree on this, but if not, agree on something.
So we'll leave that as an option if you can't kind of come to that agreement.
Yeah, this was the same time period.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, this looks like it's been a dumping ground for years. I don't remember this pile. I grew up where Tenny meets Jewett, next to that log cabin, so I spent a lot of time going back and forth on this road. And I don't ever remember a giant pile here. It looks like it's just been in one of those spots where people pull in and just dump.
Like midnight dumping type of thing?
Yeah, but it's
But it's
fill.
obviously,
I didn't
it's
see.
probably, it's not from a pickup truck, it's probably from a larger vehicle type of.
That's what it looks like, and I didn't see tires or refrigerators or automobile parts. It's fill, but the fill's been there for a while. There's trees growing out of it, and I chased back the historic aerials all the way back through the 90s, and in the black and white 90s photograph, at the toe of the slope you could see a dark shaded channel, which probably was some sort of a intermittent stream or seep from when they cut the soil out of here. I think they cut the soil out to when they were building 95 or doing some sort of an expansion in the area, and they cut into the water table, so they probably channelized it right down. Because where these flags stop, right next to flag B15 is the paved parking lot at the same elevation for the building next door. So we have a wetland that's at the same elevation as the pavement for the parking lot.
Hmm.
So there's a lot going on out here. You'll see it if we do a site walk out here.
So it's ultimately quite disturbed.
It's disturbed, but I think all of this it probably predated the bylaw, and a lot
Well,
of
I
it probably
think
predated the regs.
If you look along 95 corridor, a lot of damage was done to that whole area as they were putting a 95 in. I mean,
Right.
a lot of gravel was dug out, they cut roads, obviously there were roads that crossed there, they filled wetlands, they did a lot of different things to make 95 happen.
This would be a great spot for a problem soils workshop.
Sounds like it.
Yep. But this is it, again, we're hoping to get this line reviewed and something approved in this season so that we can put our heads together this winter and see if we can do anything out
Yeah,
here.
again, this is something I probably would want to do a third party too, because again, it's not
Clean.
clearly
The
defined.
thing is, keep in mind, our October 15th, it seemed, 2 months away, but,
It's going quick.
yeah, historically, we try to sneak these in. If we miss it, we miss it. We go wait till the spring, and it's a huge delay. So, again, if you can send that stuff to Jillian tomorrow,
Yeah.
we'll get the contract, get a check from you guys, and try to get this going really quickly.
I will entertain a motion if someone wants to make one to conduct a third party review for 91 through 93 Tenney Street.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for a third-party review, 91 to 93 Tenney Street with GFC Jillian.
Second.
Yeah, we have a motion that's been seconded to conduct a third party review for 91, 93 Tenney Street with BSC Jillian.
The only thing I'd add, as long as the same caveat, if it's deemed that there's no conflict, it's the
Right.
same applicant.
Right.
We don't expect there to be, but
With the same caveat that there are no conflicts of interest or appearance of conflicts of interest.
Remotioned. I'll call the question. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want a continuation?
We do need a continuation. September 19th, I'm looking.
8:45, please.
8:45, and I'll entertain a motion for that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue 91, 93 Tenney Street, GCC 2019-16, and RIDE to September 19th at 8:45.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded to continue the NRAD for 91 through 93 Tenney Street to September 19th at 8:45 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you guys a question? So if that dirt pile that was put there, perhaps illegally or something, created a wetland,
Still jurisdictional.
it is, so if it's created, you can't go back and, make it the way it was or something, right? It
I mean, they
has-
can propose through the project whatever they
Just-
want in the notice of intent
Just,
process.
we
You're
can't,
right.
we've continued it, we can't go too deep into the
okay,
discussion.
just-
Quick,
okay, just-
a quick question,
just- yeah,
okay, but,
yeah.
we've,
Yep.
unless you wanna open it again.
Still jurisdictional.
Short answer, it's still jurisdictional.
And I just wanted to offer too, if, not about this project, for that community garden in Lufkin's Brook, I know you guys are doing a plan. If you need to, put it on a 24x36 and add some labels, just send it over, we'll put it in CAD and throw it on an aerial and do that for the town.
Thank you.
Have a
Appreciate
good
that.
night.
Thank you.
You too.
And let's see, we have some business items to still address.
Okay.
Let's see, bills, meeting minutes.
Get a bunch. So, bills. Camp Dennison, total of $640. Building supply, Timberland, yearly alarm service contract for $250, and 2 electric bills totaling about $300. Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. This was for work that they did on our open space plan. Money coming out of a conservation fund that was money donated before my time. As far as the Pulte money.
Oh,
We used to
yes,
have that.
yes, I remember that.
So this is our
I
open
don't know if
space.
that was, I
was-
don't know if that was donation, I think that was,
It was in lieu of a fine, I think.
yes, that was
Poultry money?
Pulte.
Pulte,
Oh.
Homes.
Chicken.
That was for,
Get rid of the
that was
chicken.
for Parker River Landing.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, okay, yeah.
Gotcha.
So this was, we were working the open space plan. We were doing internally, the open space committee was working on it. The one section that we were struggling with was the ADA compliance. We just couldn't get it right. So Merrimack Valley did it for $4,000. And that was submitted 2 weeks ago, last week. And so we should be getting a full approval on that open space plan shortly.
So you've submitted the DP?
Yep.
Okay.
So we got tentative approval on the open space plan 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
Contingent on a bunch of things happening.
Right.
I took care of 95% of it. I just wasn't able to get to the ADA compliance. The open space committee was doing a little bit on that too. It just didn't get done. Another bill for $8,000 for the Merrimack Planning Commission. This is related to the CPC project. The open space was mentioned earlier, that trail linkage analysis.
Yes.
That costs $8,000. So this is money that's coming out of CPC. Again, it's $8,100. Paying ESC group, Jillian Davis is doing her third-party reviews for $1,035. This is related to the 203 East Main Street, the G Mello project that was in front of you today.
Mm-hmm.
Camp Dennison, just under $600 for building supplies. That's it.
Okay. And does anyone like to make a motion on bills?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills as read by Steve.
Second.
We have a motion and it's been seconded to approve the bills as read by Steve. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries.
So we have meeting minutes to approve for July 20th. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad. July 18th. Thank you. No, I can actually double check things too. Thank you. July 18th. So that's just signed by Carl after it's voted on.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the July 18th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and it's been seconded to approve the meeting minutes
then.
for July 18th. Is there any further discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All abstaining.
This is the order of conditions, both local and state, for the 388 North Street that you approved earlier tonight. Certification of compliance.
Hey, you can send that one back.
Thank you. For rear Lisa Lane, this is the Turning Leaf project, that fairly large subdivision that the commission approved a number of years ago. As part of this, there was a fairly large land donation, and so the major conditions that were put in place were certifying a couple of vernal pools and also land donation. So all work has been done.
Including the land donation?
Correct. So this is parcel F. That whole-
Okay, that parcel.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's right, Lisa Lane,
Yeah,
yeah.
that took a while.
Yes.
Keep in mind, this is just the roadway, so the way we permitted Lisa Lane is the roadway, the subdivision road was done as one order of conditions, and the individual lots that were relevant, like in our jurisdiction, were permitted. So this is just closing out the bigger picture, not the 2 or 3 individual lots.
How could I forget this one, Lisa Lane?
This is a COC request for 1 Marjorie Lane. And then 3 certification of compliances for 10 Brook Meadow Lane. This is not how it's supposed to happen, but
Do tell.
they had an order of conditions for the construction of the house, and then an order of conditions for a pool, and then order of conditions for a septic system. Typically, like the CVS project tonight, we don't issue an order of conditions until the old projects are closed out. That kind of process procedure was not followed for this one. So you get what you get, which is closing out 3 order of conditions at one time.
Well, part of the problem is, in some cases, unless you have a lot of due diligence, you may not even be aware there are some old ones out there, because it's been so long between.
So to be fair, I have let a few of these sneak through in my tenure here. We try not to, just like that CVS one we picked up on.
Because you're looking at, in some cases, back to the 1980s.
It sounds easy to pick up on, but the
I mean, the
computer
only-
system and how we have
The only
things is
way,
not very
unless you
clear.
had everything digitized from day one, and that you could actually cross-reference and go back based on the site.
Two more there.
And then you might be able to figure it.
Maybe.
But we're playing catch-up on a lot of this older stuff.
And that's it.
Over there in the corner.
so much fun.
What else? That's all I have, Carl.
Any other commissioner have anything you want to? Well, if there are no more issues on the agenda, and actually I don't see any, I'll entertain a motion to close.
You too?
I'd like to recommend a motion to close.
Second?
We have a recommendation or a motion to close the meeting. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, abstaining. Good night, everyone.